so today I want to share all of the books about money that I currently have on my shelf. I have read a ton of books about money. However, these are the ones that I still have on my shelf because I love them. So if you're interested in learning more about these books, please keep watching. I wanted to do this video because I just turned in my manuscript for my second book, which is a book all about speaking and my story of becoming a public speaker. And since that book is turned in, I am now starting the writing process on my third book, which is a book about money. Without further ado, let's get started. This is the first book that I have on my shelf about money. This is actually the most recent / the last book that I read about money. It is We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rodgers. I highly recommend this book. I recommend this book so much that a few weeks ago, I let you all know this is the year that I'm earning my first $1 million, and I am going to be following the philosophy that is in Rachel Rodgers' book. I just think this is an amazing book to read. Whether you want to become a millionaire or you just want to increase your financial IQ, I highly recommend this book. I also have these two books. These are books that I got back I was in graduate school, so that would have been 2008. I've had these books since 2008, 2009, and these are books by Laura Langermeier, who is a multimillionaire. She's originally from my hometown, which I didn't know that until I read her books and went on her radio show, and I just think she has a lot of beautiful philosophies and principles in here. I also have Money and the Law of Attraction by Esther and Abraham Hicks. I love anything that Esther and Abraham Hicks writes. This is all about like the law of attraction. And I think I like their work because I think they speak the most simply about the laws of nature. And I think a lot of other texts get so focused on having things and sort of complicating the formula. And Esther and Jerry Hicks, to me, they are the ones who simplify it the most. And a lot of what you all saw me practice during my debt-free journey are principles that I learned from this book. The subtitle for this book is Learning to Attract Wealth, Health, and Happiness. And I love that because it's true. They don't want you just to have the money without the wealth and the health and the happiness. This is a cult classic, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This fundamentally shifted my paradigm about money. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. Well, not a family. I would say that my mom was an entrepreneur. And I think that the entrepreneurial part of me, the reason why I can manage more risk than the average person, the reason why you guys can see me work part-time and build a company, you can see me put ideas out there, is because my mom was an entrepreneur and I saw her take risk, and I was able to watch her and understand that no matter how bad something is, it can't stay that bad forever. And it wasn't until I read this book that I understood that fire that was like inside of me, and I was able to put language to the experience that I had of growing up with an entrepreneurial mom, but living in an employee society, and making peace with that and understanding how all of that was going to connect to me earning money. I enjoyed this book so much the first time I read it that I read it again. And when I read it the second time, I actually joined the coaching program and everything. I was like a diehard Robert Kiyosaki fan. And it was just like I was going to have passive income and I was going to build a real estate portfolio, et cetera, et cetera. Eventually, I learned in time that that's not who I am. But if you understand the difference between a rich dad and a poor dad, your whole entire financial life will change. I think Robert Kiyosaki did a phenomenal job in this book. I highly recommend this book as well. This is a book by Susie Orman. What I've read, I think Susie Orman, I can't say every. I have read 9 of her books. 9. I would say 9. This is my favorite one, which is The Courage to Be Rich, Create a Life of Material and Spiritual Abundance. I am a very spiritual person. So for me, it helps when money is talked about through a spiritual lens. And when I read The Courage to Be Rich, not only did it help me to understand that it's a choice, and it's a choice that you have to make. And if you don't make that choice, you won't be rich, but also the reason why people don't make the choice to be rich is because of that idea that to be rich is to be morally corrupt. To be rich is to be low in character. To be rich is to be someone who has taken advantage of other people. And I think she did a beautiful job in this book explaining that, like, that's not how that works at all. So I really enjoyed this book. This is a book, it's called The Emotion of Money. I thrifted this book And the reason why I picked it up is because what I have found in my financial journey is that money was incredibly emotional, but none of the books that I was reading talked about the significance of the emotional landscape that you have in money, and it was super frustrating. So then when I saw this in the thrift store and literally the title was The Emotion Behind Money, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get it, I have to read it. And I was pleasantly surprised to read it. I think more so than anything, this was a book that was validating to the theories and the philosophies that I was already formulating in my mind, because I was tracking my experience and tracking the experiences of my coaching clients. And I was like, nobody is talking about this part. Everybody is so focused on behavior, like save more, spend less. Like, I get it. I have to change my behavior. But do you get that the reason I can't change my behavior is because of how that feels? And if I don't address those feelings and those emotions, the behavior isn't going to be permanent anyway. And I thought she did a really good job addressing that. Speaking of the idea of emotions and money, this video is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the largest online platform with licensed therapists. I have said it before, and I will keep saying it. The person that you see before you talking about money very comfortably would not be me had it not been for the 6 years that I've been in therapy. Money is a magnifier, and so many of us don't have the money that we want, desire, or need in our life because we would not be able to handle money magnifying our current beliefs, thoughts, feelings, habits, behaviors, and boundaries or lack thereof. So if you are anything like me and you actually want to have more money, maybe you want to earn your first $1 million, maybe you want to earn your first 6 figures, maybe you just want to get out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle and you haven't been able to figure out in all of your adult years how to do it, I highly encourage you to try therapy. Try therapy to go unlock and process all of those things that are preventing you from being as wealthy and as healthy and as happy as you possibly could be. All you have to do is go to www.tryonlinetherapy/Stacey Flowers and you can be matched with a licensed therapist in as little as 48 hours. This is Happy Money, the Japanese art of making peace with your money. The way that I categorize this is it's very like, the life-changing magic of tidying up, but for money. It introduces a very simple concept that gets you to ask the question, am I exchanging money from an energetic place of feeling happy? How you feel and what you emote when you're doing it actually matters more than the amount of the exchange. And it was just a sweet book that was filled with a lot of wisdoms that I think they're common knowledge, but they're not common practice. And it was a beautiful reminder. And I just like some of the ways that he expressed that we could be very zen and less emotional about our experience with money. This book, I would say, yes, this is my all-time favorite book about money. This is The Divine Law of Compensation by Marianne Williamson. I love this because, again, she mixed spirituality and money, but I also like that she talked about it from the perspective of there is a law of money, just like there are laws of nature. We have law of gravity, law of self-preservation. And what I like is in this book, she talks about how there is a law of compensation, right? There is a rule built into the universe that has nothing to do with you, like personally. And that because it's a law, it is there whether you want it to be or not. And the thing of it is you cannot break the law, right? You can defy it, but you can't break it. And that's so many of us are breaking the law of divine compensation, and we're wondering why we are not compensated properly for the work that we put out or the activities that we do. And it has to do with misunderstanding the law. So if you think about it, like if you misunderstand gravity, you will jump out of a window and then be surprised when you hit the ground. But gravity just is gravity, and you don't have to be surprised. And so many people are like jumping out of the window on their finances, not understanding that they're not failing financially because something is fundamentally wrong with them. They're failing because there is a law to finances. And again, in my journey to become 100% debt free, you will have seen me practicing a lot of these. I've never explicitly said that I was practicing the divine law of compensation, but I think some of the exponential growth and then the quantum leaps that I was able to make is definitely because running in the back of my mind were a lot of the principles that I found in this book. This is my favorite money book of all time, for sure. Probably second favorite money book of all time is Worthy. I love this book. The title is Worthy, Boost Your Self-Worth to Grow Your Net Worth. I like this book because I think for the first time, money was connected to beliefs. So I experienced on my journey a lot of the emotional part, but reading this book helped me to understand that my beliefs specifically are the things that are keeping me within a certain amount of money, because I believe people who look like me should only have this amount. People who talk like me, people who dress like me, people who live from where I live, whatever your belief is, that is the thing. And the belief is directly correlated with your sense of self-worth. And her connecting that dot with, like, if you have a low sense of self-worth, you will have a low experience of net worth, was mind-blowing to me. The other thing that I love about this, and the reason why it's my second favorite, is because there are so many exercises in this book, and I am a workshop exercise person, so I love to be able to reflect and dive deep into something, and she gave me access to that. And I just think it's really well written and just really, really beautiful and well done. This is Business by the Book by Larry Burkett. This isn't necessarily specifically a money book, it's more so a business book, but because the way that I earn money is through my business, it was important for me to read books that were about business that were also focused on the bottom line. There's actually another book between this book and this book. This is Business by the Bible. This is another one of those thrift store finds where it's like eat the meat, spit out the bones. There's like 4 or 5 lines in this book that supplement what I read in this book that then helped me to integrate biblical principles into my business so that I could make sure that I was able to earn in a way that honored my values and didn't sort of abuse or take advantage of mankind, which I think is just something that's really important, because a lot of people don't really care whether or not their businesses do that, and I actually really cared. And I'll tell you probably the biggest principle, and I can't remember if it was this one or this one, that I got from both of these, is that it tells the story of Esther and Boaz, but it tells the story not from the romance and all the other stuff. It tells the story from the perspective of Boaz would tell his staff to make sure when they were harvesting that they left some of the whatever they were harvesting for the gleaners. And so literally Boaz would tell his staff that was out harvesting, once you bring in a bushel, make sure you take some from that bushel and cast it back down on the ground so that the gleaners can come and pick that up and they can have something. And so there's this idea that so the principle is make sure you leave something for the gleaner. So whenever you do a business deal, whenever I am negotiating a contract, instead of like taking in the full harvest, I make sure that I leave something for the gleaners. I make sure I leave something on the table. So the way that the example that he used in the book, he talked about how in real estate, when he would sell property, he wouldn't sell the property for equal to its value. He would sell it for like $10,000 less than its value or $20,000 less than its value, so that way when whoever purchased the home, they would automatically have a home with $10,000 to $20,000 worth of equity at the time of sale. So when I thought about that for my own business, I was like, okay, well, how can I make sure in my business I'm leaving something for the gleaners? How can I do that through pricing my products? How can I do that through what I over deliver when I'm giving my products? And a part of the way that I do that is by making myself more available to my audience. And that's not something that in any of the boot camps that I went to and any of the business building seminars that I went to, anybody talked about this idea of if you're harvesting, right? Like if you are harvesting, that means you're already doing well. So make sure you leave something for the gleaners. It changed my whole entire business. So love those 2 books for that. This book, I enjoyed this book in the way that I enjoy reading textbooks. And here's the thing, I enjoy reading textbooks, but it reads like a textbook, and it's called The Psychology of Money. And it literally means that. And I think the bottom line to this book is that everything that you ever heard about money is being made up, because it is the fruit of your psychology. There is no one who has the full market share. There's no one who has the silver bullet. There's no one whose money philosophy is actually better than any other person's money philosophy, because money is psychological, which means that the successes or failures of your money is relative to the goal that you have. And once you understand that, then you can understand, oh, well, when I'm buying into someone's philosophy and I'm using it as a blueprint, it doesn't mean that they're the be all end all and the savior to all of my finances. No, it means that their psychology matches with my own, and I will likely be more fruitful, or I'll likely be more abundant, or I'll likely win with their philosophy because we have a psychological match or familiarity. Money is psychological. It's not real. It is literally something that we make up and we assign meaning to. And if you can get in front of the meaning that you assign to money, then you'll actually be way better off with money. So I enjoyed this. It reads very much like a textbook. These two books about money, Think and Grow Rich, co-classic, and then Getting Rich, the trilogy. And so it has Think and Grow Rich in here, The Science of Getting Rich, and The Master Key System. Both of these books, well, this is technically 3 books, but both of these are sort of in the realm of that Napoleon Hill sort of philosophy, where you're getting reintroduced to the laws of nature, you're getting reintroduced to the language of money, you're getting reintroduced to very basic, simple concepts and principles that we forget that are necessary in order to actually be rich and have money. So for example, in Think and Grow Rich, his opening chapter talks about desire and how a lot of people don't have money because they've been tricked out of having desire. Whether you've been tricked out of having desire for money through religion, which says, you know, the root of all money, the money is the root of all evil, or you've been tricked out of desire because of your gender, like women shouldn't publicly desire money, or you've been tricked out of desire because of your race, or you've been tricked out of desire because of an ability or a lack of an ability that you have, like, oh, I'm not smart enough to have money, I don't know enough, like whatever. The opening chapter talks about how desire is the most essential ingredient to becoming rich. Like, if you do not have a desire for it, then you will not have the power to actually create riches in your life. And it's like, it's a fundamental thing, but it's so simple, but I think it's simplicity that blows your mind, because it's like, wait a minute, you mean that because I don't desire being rich, that is one of the factors for why I'm not rich? And it's just like, yeah. And so many people don't desire it, and sometimes they get on their high horse or whatever, and they're like, oh, I am better than this, I don't need it, it's not that important. And some people don't desire it because they don't even realize they've been tricked out of it. So I like this book because it brings you back to those fundamental principles. It talks about repetition. It talks about the value of a mastermind, right? A mastermind is just what I talk about in my TED Talk. You're the average of the 5 people you choose to associate with the most. So if your mastermind, or the people you associate with the most, have a terrible mindset as it relates to money, there is no way you're going to come out of your financial circumstance. It's just not a thing. So I enjoyed this book for that reason. And then when you come here, it's all 3. So The Science of Getting Rich and The Master Key System. The Science of Getting Rich brings you back to a place of understanding that it's your birthright to be rich. And then The Master Key System brings you back to a place of understanding how your habits impact how you fulfill a birthright. And then last but certainly not least, the last book that I have on my shelf is The Richest Man Who Ever Lived, King Solomon. So for those of you guys who don't know, my favorite book in the Bible is Ecclesiastic. My favorite person in the Bible is Solomon. This is a book that I bought, I think, on my 2nd trip when I went to Kigali, Rwanda. It may have been on my 3rd. Look, I wrote it in there. I brought it June 26th of 2017. What in the world? That's so crazy. Like, and I think it was very fitting because for me, being able to travel to Africa is like, you have to be rich to do that. And at the time in 2017, I would not have described myself as a rich person, but I am a United States citizen and I traveled to the continent of Africa. That is mind blowing to me. I bought this book when I was there because it has Solomon in it, but then also when I flipped through it, one of the things that I really appreciate about it is it talks about how anybody by today's standard, like if we lived in the time when King Solomon and all them lived, like our wealth and our riches are 1,000-fold to what they deem to be riches and wealth. And if we could shift our perspective and fully understand that the phone that we hold in our hand, the camera that we record on, the clothes that we wear, the running water and plumbing that we have, we would actually be able to fully realize and embody the level of wealth that we have. Those are all the books that I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed this list. I would highly recommend any of these books. I would love to know What are the books that you read about money that you love? Yeah, that's all that I have for you. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you very, very soon.